I don't know if you know that the Constitution of the Six Nations was the model for the American Constitution, and it's never admitted.
I did not know that.
I'll talk to you about that afterwards. Okay. All right. Sorry. This is a topic close to my heart. I'm very moved by what you did. Thank you. So, Will Webster, many of you who are here have heard him read on a regular basis. And I was running around the internet and discovered that he is well hidden on the internet, which is really remarkable. He told me tonight that he's actually taken his website down. It's under construction, and so he's fairly invisible. So what can I tell you about William Webster? Well, I can assure you he is not William H. Webster, who is chairman of the Homeland Security Advisory Council.
Maybe.
Our Will Webster is definitely on the other side of the cultural divide to that particular gentleman. Will is a really eclectic kind of guy with an eclectic and I wondered maybe occasionally erratic kind of journey and life history. He's lived and traveled. He's tasted life. I think he's probably ridden the tiger more than once. He has a long history of writing poems and reading them. He's been an organizer, an MC, and a reader at music festivals, including such festivals as Mariposa in Toronto, the Renaissance Fair in Courtenay, the Seminar Roots and Blues Festival, and Under Volcano Festival in North Vancouver. And once, he was the international guest poet at the Austin International Poetry Festival. So he's been around. He's done a variety of journalistic endeavors, contributing to everything from CBC Morningside in the 90s to such disparate publications as the Yukon News and the Welland Tribune. So across the country, north and south, east and west, Will has a flair for the dramatic. He likes to speak up for those who don't always have ways to speak for themselves. He's curious about life. He likes to grow things. He has lots of ideas. He writes, and you know what? He loves an audience, so let's welcome them to the microphone.
I'm taller than I seem to you. I feel a little bit like Woody Guthrie wandering in on the New York Philharmonic here.
Woo, Woody Guthrie!
I didn't know what to do. I've had a horrible couple weeks. All week long I found myself wandering around going, they say there is a secret chord. Everywhere I go, you know. And finally today I put on all my Leonard Cohen collection and listened to it right through while I prepared for tonight. I met Leonard once almost. I was coming out of a bookstore in Santa Monica, California in about 2002, and he was walking into the bookstore. And I saw him, and he was dapper, his hair was back, like he was out for dinner or something. And he was walking into this bookstore, and I recognized him right away, and I went, howdy. And he said, greetings. And then I kicked my ass down the block for not coming up with something better than howdy to say to the guy, you know. I didn't know what to do tonight. I was trying to time things out. Like when you put together, I have a real problem doing this, putting a book together, because as soon as it's in this form, you can never get away from it. You have to own it. There's no escape. And usually by the time you get something to the point where it's in a book and getting printed and stuff, you're past it. At least I am. That's my problem in life. I can't stay in one place. Now, I don't know how much of a poet I am, but I definitely lived in a poet's life. I was literally born in the back seat of a taxi cab. Right? I was a breech birth. I was born in the back of a taxi cab, and I came out with my feet facing the wrong way, 2 club legs. I had a semi-formed twin. I was a real mess. And they gave me a white Bible with my name inscrolled in it. And for years, I was really proud that when I was born, they gave me a Bible. And I found out later it was because they gave that Bible to all the kids they thought were going to die. So I sure showed them. You know? And then, you know, when I was 3, I almost got eaten by a bear in Tobermory. I thought my mom had left me in my playpen. My grandma and my mom had left me in the playpen. And there was this bear come down the driveway, and I was going, hey, over here, come over here and play with me. And all of a sudden, my aunt had me by the armpits and was running me into the cabin, and my grandma was coming out of the cabin with a shotgun, and she fired at that bear, and for years later told the story how she parted the bear's hair. But I thought it was a friend coming, but it was a big brown bear, and I was going to be lunch. So anyway, that's the kind of life I grew up living. You know, when I was 5 years old, I tried to claim authorship to my mother, who was basically a lexicographer and had married my dad because of his last name, Webster. She thought that would create a poet or somebody who was good with words. To punish me, she used to put me in a corner with an Oxford dictionary, a crayon, and a blank piece of paper. So I was like drawing words. By the time I was 3, I could print, and by the time I was 5, I could write longhand. And I still didn't think a woman like that would have ever heard of row your boat. And I came home from school one day and tried to claim authorship of row your boat. And she made me write out the entire Oxford, beginning with plagiarism, which to her was like as good as murder, and held it over my head the rest of her life, and demanded to see all my poetry, and had me hooked by the time I was 5, because I had to actually write my own poem to get out of that. And that poem is in this book, or part of it. It goes something like, I am a small bird, you are the sky. Within your bounty I will fly and sail. I am a candle, you are the night. Within your shelter I will give light and melt as I burn away. So, I was 5 when I was writing stuff like that. It's been downhill ever since. But anyway, by the time I traveled a lot, like I grew up, it was wild. I fell off a mountain one time and was a hero because I fell off the mountain and didn't cry. And I was so busy falling and watching my life flash in front of my eyes and seeing this gravel thing coming up at me, and I hit that gravel thing, and I remember jumping off a high diving board once, and I cannonballed. So as I started to fall down this hill, I cannonballed, and I rolled down the hill, and I hit a tree. And I ended up with my arms and my legs on either side of the tree, and my nose pressed into the bark of the tree. And it was like the tree was breathing. And you know, I don't know where I'm going with that story. I'm getting way off base. What I'm trying to tell you is that maybe I'm not the world's greatest poet, but I've definitely lived the poet's life. And one of the guys who recognized that was this guy, Peter Gzowski. And I was living in the Yukon. I'd wandered up there because I don't know why. I went up there because I wanted to see what it was like. And Peter came doing his golf tournament. And he started getting me to call into his show and tell him what the weather was like in Whitehorse on mornings and stuff. And that really, and then all of a sudden I get this book in the mail and it's got one of my stories in it. And that was the first time I was ever nationally published, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, I don't really care what people think of me. Peter Gzowski liked me. No? I know you like me. You're always liking me. But then, when I was 40, growing up the way I did, with those big braces on your legs, all my siblings would flee me because they were heavy, and I would just knock. I learned that all I had to do was move towards something and it was mine. Everybody would scatter. And then I went to kindergarten and I tried that and I got punched out. So then I learned how to fight, right? So I grew up fighting, and I grew up in this really wild scene, which made me unlivable with. My term is unmanageable. I'm not management material. Nobody can live with me. So I finally figured out when I was about 40 years old, actually on my 40th birthday, I figured out that this was it. I was batching it for all time. And to celebrate it, I went out and bought this book, which is Leonard Cohen's Stranger Music. It's all his poetry up until that point. And I wrote on the inside cover, "To Will, on your 40th belly button birthday, with love, your best friend." So that all sets the stage for these poems. Have I gone over time yet?
No, not quite.
No. My last reading I did for you was at the old El Macombo, or the old Macombo poem on Blanchard Street. And it was August 1st, 1997. And it was so traumatic that a few months later I moved away to Mexico forever. I hope this one goes better. I scribbled this the other day. I've been trying to figure out what this book's about. He says I'm erratic. He's right. I don't know. I've always tried to fly by the seat of my pants. I have deliberately not tried to make anything fit. When I was young, I learned that the best way to go was to be able to roll with whatever was going on. And so when he invited me to read a poem here, actually the first time I bugged him about a year and a half ago about doing a feature, and Daniel says to me, "There are other readings." And I thought, well, I'll show you. I'll hang around till you got no choice but to give me a feature. But one of the things I really like about this reading is it challenges me. You guys are all so good, and some of you are so highly educated, and you know everything about poetry, that just coming here challenges me, and it makes me grow. And I look forward to it. I get really irate over Christmas and in the summer when you shut the reading down. It's important to me. By the time the reading's going again, I've got 7 hours of stuff to read yet. And I don't ever get it out. I'm so nervous here tonight to stand before you to share my art such as it is. My book is yellow with red title and blue subtitle. The primary colors on a background of gray words like a wall, ready for the tagger's paint. Inside, too, are the primary colors of the day, the dark and light, the high and low, the wind and still. And in behind, there's me, the poet, like a wall, or perhaps a tiger caught in the headlights of your inquiring eyes. These pages are my lifeblood. They make my life worthwhile. But they are not my only pages. I have many more. Nor are they my best pages. They are what they are. The pages I have found when I have sought the Muse's mercy, when I've opened up my flesh to her and let the art begin. So, the poems come from across my life. And I'll read you some of them finally. I was a broken man once, left to die in the maelstrom of my own stupidity. I was smashed by that storm, beaten savagely, my brittle heart torn to slivers and left to the wind, my mind dust, and my body, sad body, like the ruins of some ancient civilization that thought itself invincible. And seeing as you're all doing weather, no, I'm not going to read you that one. So, anyway, most of the poems in this book are poems that I have read to you over the past 2 years. Some of them are, there's 103 poems, 20 of them are new. The rest kind of touch on my society, my life. Yesterday morning, I woke up completely congested, coughing, thinking I'm going to have to call Danielle. And then this morning I woke up real good, like I put myself to bed with tea and had 9 hours sleep. And I felt really good until about 20 minutes ago. Some germ born of baby's drool, or let loose in the air above my coffee cup, has found its way into my bloodstream. Now it howls like a rabid dog through my sinuses and growls like a wounded bear in my throat. I don't know, that might be overdoing it, but I don't know. I carry my heart like a pizza, right out front and level. Every once in a while I let my guard down and wind up with pizza all over me. I'm glad you guys think that's funny. I told you I lived in the Yukon. What I know about the Yukon. You asked me to tell you something about the Yukon. I was out on Saturday in my shorts and t-shirt cycling by the river. It was 80 Fahrenheit out of the wind, but there was still snow on the north bank. This is a special time, I'm told. Hot enough in the day to suntan, cold enough at night to keep the mosquitoes sleeping. The brown hills are turning green. The purple crocuses dance on Crocus Hill. I can't tell you much about the Yukon, but I know you'd like it. Okay. This one I've read to you before, but I think it's a good poem to read here because I was thinking while I was sitting there and listening to everybody read that I often compare writing poetry to sifting sand. And you can spend all day sifting sand and all you'll get is sand. And you might have to take a week, but sooner or later there's a nugget going to show up in that sifter, right? And other days you go down there by the river and you start sifting the sand and you get nothing but nuggets, you know? And that's been my experience. And for many years, like I became a journalist for many years, and I stopped sifting sand. I forgot where the sand pile was. I lost sight of the river. And I ended up writing for work. And I hated it and I abandoned it. And it took me a long time to find the river again and to find the sand pile. You know, so now you guys know you're just a big sand pile to me. She was painfully shy when I spoke to her. She ran away. Some folks find me overwhelming, but most times I'm overwhelmed. I didn't mean to frighten her. I was simply wanted to pass the time of day, and she was doing something I understood, writing poetry. And poetry does not come easy. It is like gardening. Every drop of rain must be gathered. And manure, you'll need a big stinking pile of manure. What else do I have here? Oh, this one, yes. This one I think, as I was, realizing, I was over at my friend Gordon's on last Monday, I think it was, or Tuesday or something, or Wednesday even, and we got talking about Leonard Cohen, and the word wasn't out yet that Lenny had passed, and then I went to a poetry reading the following night, and everybody was doing Leonard Cohen poetry, and I still couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until I got home and had watched a hockey game and done a bunch of other stuff that I finally realized that my champion here was gone. And, you know, when I look back in life, I remember clearly the day John F. Kennedy was killed. I remember clearly the day that Martin Luther King was killed, Bobby Kennedy. I remember Woodstock. My hometown was just 7 miles from the border, just filled up with these young Americans after the concert and stuff. And we had thousands of these young people, artistic poets, musicians, pouring through our town all the time. And that was my role model. I was like a 15-year-old kid, and I wanted to be just like those guys. You know? So when I was 16, my mom gave me a $20 bill, and I stuck out my thumb, and I'm still going, you know. But we had such hopes and dreams, and we really believed in that we were going to change the world. I kind of put it in terms to myself, kind of allegorically here. It's called Chasing Rainbows. And again, this weather here. The rain came in rumbling torrents of thunder, and we leaped between the lightning bolts, running for cover in a summer storm that lasted 20 years. And by the end of it all, we were refugees, shocked by our own survival, too amazed to know what to do. Then the clouds cleared, and light left gave way to deepening night, where we stepped quietly from hiding to survey the damage done, the neglected friends, the unrealized aspirations, and the misgivings. And we wandered around another 20 years in the darkness fumbling, only to find the dawn we'd waited for so long, overcome again by cloud. And the rain came in rumbling torrents of thunder, and we leaped between the lightning bolts, running for cover, where we still dream of chasing rainbows. The poem, the title here, I'll finish with the title poem. When I came up with the idea for the book, I was working off the, like, everyone puts out a greatest hits album, right? But then I thought, well, I thought, no, it's about the test of life. And when I looked at the poems I put in here, like the poems, like the first poem is about dawn, the last poem is about sunset, and there's days through the book. There's a few, it's like a week in the life. And so I've given it the name, and then I wrote the poem. And so I'll leave you with this. Someone was asking me, what's the great test all about? So, once I believed the great test was to see if the poetry meant anything to anyone but me. My great dream had been to find one thing I could do to distinguish myself from the rest. An impossible task it was, for an impossible personality, raised as I was on deceit and subterfuge, nurtured by constant upheaval and change. Even my birth stories were falsified. And the great truth was happenstance. There was no master plan to be followed. I had somehow survived the gene pool, a mutant gene gone wild. It is not the fittest who survive, nor the most determined. The random freaks of nature, the crazy spinning, unknown, unprepared, ignored, unkept, and utterly unexpected. That is what survives. The only rhyme is in the effort, and the only logic flawed. So reason has no scale on which it can be measured. And the great test in poetry and in life is letting it happen.
Will Webster, let's hear it for him. And again, for some